Our objectives for this session tonight are, one, to orient you to the web page where the item prototypes exist, so you know how to navigate it. And then number two, to demonstrate some of the technology features in a couple of the items. Keep in mind that on August 30th and September 5th, we are going to be doing in-depth webinars on the items where we'll be able to play with the items in a lot more detail, spend more time answering questions. So again, tonight is about orientation, demonstrating some of the features, and then getting you all off to dinner. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Tamara Reavis, who you met yesterday. She's from the District of Columbia and is also the chair of the operational working group, the committee on Common Core State Standards Implementation and Educator Engagement for PARCC. So we're going to hand the headphones off and get rolling.
Thanks so much. I just can't tell you how excited we are to roll out these prototypes to you tonight. And anytime I'm out in the field, the first thing people say to me is, what is this assessment going to look like? How are the items going to be different? You keep saying different, 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 but what is it going to be? And so we're just so pleased to show these to you tonight. I just want to thank everyone from the PARCC staff, to our vendors, and to the leadership team, and everyone else that I'm missing for getting this work done and getting it ready to share with you today. So PARCC is truly designed to be aligned with the standards, with quality instruction that is aligned to the standards. And so to put that really in teacher speak, this is going to be an assessment that's going to be worth teaching to. You usually hear teach to the test is such a horrible thing, but if you build a great assessment, then it's okay to teach to it. And that is the goal of PARCC. Okay, so what's different about the development process? First, we started with the standards, and then we started with the standards and developed the model content frameworks to provide guidance on the focus standards and the standards of importance. Again, just to note, the Common Core standards are not the model content frameworks, and the model content frameworks are not the standards. The standards came first, and then the model content frameworks. So then what we did is we took those frameworks to inform our blueprint. So for the first time, the language that went to our test developers and the language that went to our teachers in the classrooms was the exact same thing. So that's really exciting. So here's kind of our long list of how they were developed. So I'm just going to pull out a couple of key things. So first we had our 2 research universities to help us, and we developed the conceptual models and initial PARCC items. We then took those items to ETS and Pearson, our 2 vendors, and working through the parameters of our ITN, the intent to negotiate, and we developed some sample items. Then it went through many, many rounds of review, from K-12 folks to higher ed, across all of our PARCC states. We had some of our Common Core writers to take a look and kind of give their stamp of approval. Members of the PARCC content working groups reviewed the items. PARCC state leaders reviewed the items, and then they were finalized and published. And so what you're seeing tonight has been through many rounds of review, and we're just excited of the quality that you're getting ready to see. Bonnie?
We're going to the live website now, and we're going to direct, if you give us just a moment, we're going to pull that website up and show you how to navigate that website. And so give us a moment, and those of you that are at home in pajamas or feeling comfortable in your own home, if you'll pull open the website, we'll try and direct you so that you can take a look. So when you come onto the PARCC Online website, you're going to see that there's a place to click either down below where it says Item and Task Prototypes, or under the PARCC Assessment. Go ahead and click on the tab at the top that says the PARCC Assessment. And then you'll notice that it says click here to find PARCC Advances in Assessment and Sample Items, if you'll click there. From there, you're going to see there's a landing page. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But then you can pull down, and if you'll pull all the way down for me, you'll notice that you can see there are sample items as well as a place to get into the rubrics. But we're going to look for a minute at some of the items. Let's go ahead and go to grade 10. And if you'll click on the grade 10, I'm going to show you this grid before we go into any specific item. Every grade level has this grid that appears that allows you to understand the design of the PARCC assessments, and how the items might be situated within a sample assessment. So you can see PARCC has, for its summative assessment, a performance-based component with 3 tasks: a research simulation task, a narrative task, and a literary analysis task. And if you pull all the way down just a little bit further, you'll see that the bottom of the grid talks about the end-of-year assessment. Now, you'll notice on this 10th grade grid where the samples are that there are all of the items listed, and they're all listed in the same column. That's because all of these samples are items that would be on the literary analysis task. So when you click on an item at the top, if it says narrative writing task, that's an item that would be situated within the narrative writing task. So let's take a look now at the last sample, the grade 10 prose constructed response sample 2. And this is an example of a prose constructed response that measures reading, written expression, and knowledge of language and conventions. And what you'll notice is this would be the end piece, the last item in a literary analysis task. And you can see that students use what they've learned from 2 different texts, Daedalus and Icarus by Ovid, and To a Friend Whose Work Has Come to Triumph by Anne Sexton, to write an essay that analyzes how Icarus's experience of flying is portrayed differently in the 2 texts. Notice that students are required to synthesize and use information from sources from 2 different texts, a relatively complex text. You'll notice down below, one of the things that we have on all of the items is there's a place that talks about the passage. You'll notice that permissions are pending for the texts. Once we have permissions, the text will be hyperlinked, and you'll be able to check in there. And then we're not going to click on it tonight, but you can see for more specific information. There's a way to get information on how the item is scored. There's a way to get also in that same PowerPoint information about how the item is aligned with evidences and standards and claims, and also what does this item show us? And of course, this item shows us that students can write with technology using the word processing, and it also shows that students are able to use and analyze texts in order to write. I'm going to show you one other language arts item. You can go to grade 6, please, for me. And if you look at grade 6, you'll notice all of these items fit within the narrative writing task. And if you'll click on the one that says grade 6 TECR, you'll notice it's the 3rd one down for those of you at home. I want to show you this item. It's an evidence-based piece that requires the students to do 3 pieces of work to get full credit on the item. And this item is one that allows for partial credit. So first, the students choose one word that describes the character based on evidence from the text. And I want you to see that cueing. There is more than one correct choice listed below. What's really neat about this item is often in machine scoreable tests for English language arts in the past, there was always one right answer, even though we know in the classroom, often there might be multiple correct answers that we could use to describe a character. Here the students get to be divergent thinkers. They pick the character trait that lines up. Not all of those character traits are correct, but there is more than one. They select that, and then here's the critical piece, standard 1, opportunities to find sentences in the passage. And once the passage is up there, they'll be able to click on pieces of the passage, drop that into the box, and line up the character trait with pieces of the text to really show how they are finding evidence to support the conclusion that they've drawn about character. So we're using the technology in order to be able to assess what used to be scored only through a hand-scored item, allowing for partial credit, allowing for divergent thinking, all with a machine scoreable item. And that's one of the things that the technology is allowing us to do. And with that, I'll let Dr. Sovde talk a little bit about the math items.
So let's go ahead and go back out to the main page, and we're actually going to, don't do anything yet, Lynn, right? This is going to be audience participation, right? Remember, one of the objectives is how do you navigate the website. So where should I go first? PARCC assessments. Lots of great information here. What should I do next? Click where? I'm teasing. Thank you. So click here. to find the PARCC assessments. For folks at home, again, I think your primary navigation tool is going to be down that left-hand column, right, which is where all the items are listed. I do encourage everybody to look at the content that is on this landing page. Some of the questions around accessibility and accessibilities and accommodations is addressed here. Limitations of the prototypes. There's a lot of good information, particularly for you educator leader cadre members to be very familiar with as you're talking about the prototypes. Remember the comments I made yesterday morning about some people think it's going to be the same old, and some people think it's going to be virtual reality, right? Helping people understand that we're situating this, getting the expectations right in the middle. So for math, what I'd like to do is actually navigate down that left-hand column, Samples Mathematics to grade 7, please. And I'm going to show you an item that's new today that I didn't show yesterday morning. And you'll see, as with ELA, the landing page for the math tasks at each grade level show the different task types, right? Remember task 1, task 2, type 1, type 2, and type 3. Type 1 is aligned to, it's the machine scorable items, major work of the grade, fluency where necessary, connections to the practices. Type 2 is assessing mathematical reasoning, and type 3 is the modeling and applications. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and go down, please. And you will see in the bottom left-hand corner under sample tasks for type 1, so machine scorable, associated with the major work of the grade, the speed problem. So please click on speed. And this item demonstrates a few different aspects of what the prototypes are intending to do. First, you can see that the problem itself is requiring students to understand the rate of change, looking at 4 different, or 2 different, but in 4 different ways, what the rate of change looks like, right? Slope of the line or what they see in the table, making calculations from the table, and drawing out the slope from the graphs of the lines themselves. The question asks students to take the objects and rate them from greatest speed to least speed over in the bottom right-hand corner. And to do that, the student would click on, for example, where it reads Object A, and drag that over to a column on the right-hand side, and now you are rating, you are putting each one of those objects in order from greatest speed to least speed. And that's right, you can click on all 4 of those items, drag them over to make your best, make your best answer based on the information in the problem. If a student doesn't like the solution, isn't quite sure, student can click on Reset, and all of those guys will pop back over, right? So it gives kids an opportunity to mess around with the problem for a little bit before they actually submit the problem. As with ELA literacy, you will see in the bottom that there are PDFs associated with each one of the sample items or prototypes. And here is where you get a lot of information about how the standards align to the particular task, or I should say it the other way around, how the tasks align to particular standards and how they are intended to derive evidence of student mastery of those standards. As you are getting ready to talk about the prototypes, please make sure you take a look at those PDFs as they provide a lot of the substantiation around the items themselves. So let's move on from grade 7 back to high school. I want to pick up the task that I showed you yesterday morning. You'll recall that we tried to show how some of the functionality worked in the golf ball problem, but the problem, you'll recall we couldn't get it to work, and the reason was actually because my browser, the cache had not been cleared, and so my browser got confused about where to go to get the information. So you may run into this issue. It's a good idea before you go look at the prototypes that you go ahead and clear the cache on your browser before you start looking at them again. So for mathematics, again, we know that there is the navigation column over on the left-hand side. Looks like Lynn has already clicked on high school, and we get the landing page for high school that shows the same task types. And let's go ahead and scroll down to one of the type 3 tasks where it reads prototype items. And when you click on prototype items in the bottom right-hand corner under sample tasks, it actually takes you to an external website. You'll recall that Tamara shared that some of the items, some of the concepts behind the items were developed by either the Charles A. Dana Center at the University of Texas in Austin or the Institute for Learning at the University of Pittsburgh. And in mathematics, it was the Charles A. Dana Center. And so we've actually been moved over to their website to take a look at some of these tasks. Over in the in the left-hand corner, again, you have your navigation area that allows you to click on high school tasks. Gives you the two that are available. I talked a little bit about the quadratic transformations yesterday, as well as the golf balls in water. Let's go ahead and click on golf balls in water. Takes you to a landing page that says a lot about the item itself, and then you'll notice, more or less at the top of the page for folks at home, there's a red arrow pointing left, and then it reads about the task, CCSSM alignment, part ABC, scoring, and then an arrow to the right. We're going to just go ahead and click on part A there, noting that if you want to learn more about how the task aligns to the standards, you can click on CCSSM alignment. And here we have the golf ball task. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail here again because we looked at it yesterday morning, but I did want to show you again some of the technological features of the problem. So why don't we go ahead and scroll down to the question, which reads, drag tiles to complete the sentences and the equation below based on the results of Tom's experiment, where the student would need to go back up and look at the graph, look at the table and start making some decisions. So as we read the answer, it says the height of the water changes at an average rate of about blank centimeters per golf ball. And what the student would want to do is pick whichever one of those numbers actually represents what that rate of change is. I haven't done the problem to figure out the rate of change, so just for illustrative purposes, let's choose 12.0. We can click on that tile, drag it down, and we have 12 centimeters. And each one of those boxes can be populated in the same fashion. And again, you have the opportunity to submit the answer once students are comfortable with how they have laid those boxes down. I think what is really nice about this type of problem is that it allows the task to get at students' ability to think through the representations of the mathematics, to be able to make sense around the conceptual understanding of what the rate of change looks like, right, how the table is functioning, and then ultimately to create an equation or a model for how that data is behaving. So we're not going to do the entire item. Again, I just wanted to show what some of the functionality was there. So you could see, again, how to navigate the website, and then also how what some of the functionalities look like with respect to each of these items. So with that, we're going to turn it back over to the PowerPoint and wrap things up. So what I want to make sure we make clear before we wrap up is there's more than one way to skin a cat here. You can get to the sample items in a variety of different ways, and one of them is actually from the In the Classroom website, which is also where the latest content frameworks are located. So the website is at the bottom, and you'll see this. I don't expect you to read it. It's parkonline.org/classroom, and you'll also see this on the PowerPoint when you take a look at it. There are a variety of other resources on that web page, and could be a nice way to get at the prototypes. And we'll move to the next slide, please. And along with the resources that are there, I also wanted to point out another web page that's actually hosted not at parkonline.org, but at achieve.org, which is referred to as Achieving the Common Core. And what you'll see on this website is a whole host of resources. From sample tasks, the illustrative mathematics project, the equip tri-state rubrics for aligning instructional materials, a variety of different PowerPoints, lots and lots of different pieces are available on this particular website, and it's split out between advocacy and communications, as well as instructional supports and alignment resources. So do encourage you to take a look at this website. It's achieving-common-core off of the achieve.org website. So we haven't had a chance to talk about resources and specific places to go, so wanted to make sure we pointed that out to you before we wrap things up. And with that, I'll go ahead and pause and see if there are any questions or comments from you. And it's 4:52. If there aren't any questions or comments, you can go to dinner. Are there any questions or comments? Yes. Yeah, just. Yes, it's a wonderful question. I'll repeat it for folks at home. Will additional prototypes be added over time? And yes, additional prototypes will be added over time until we get a full complement, which is one of the reasons it's so important to clear the cache before you go in so that you can see those new prototypes emerge.